Welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, the need for financial education, but first, vaccinating Pennsylvanians. We'll be back after these words.
Welcome to the fast-paced and unrehearsed weekly discussion featuring the leaders who help shape your world. Join us as we address the issues that impact you each and every day. This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Well, welcome back. We're delighted to have the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Bryan Cutler. He represents the 100th District, and the Speaker and I often talk a bit about the Susquehanna River, and he's down closer to another state's border, I think, than the length of the river, which is a very long and very important river. Do I got that right, Mr. Speaker?
Yes, sir, you do.
Yeah, well, at any rate, let's talk a little bit about vaccinating folks in our state. It got off to a little rocky start. Now, every day you read of another site opening for mass vaccinations, literally all over the state. Take it.
Yeah, I think you're correct. I think the beginning it was a little rocky in terms of both the supply chain as well as the distribution. And we had consistently pushed for a task force throughout the pandemic, and the governor was agreeable to a vaccine task force. Once that was implemented and he signed it into law, he immediately called them into action. I know they've met several times per week since then, and we've seen a noticeable increase in both access as well as volume of vaccines. We have a mass vaccination site here in Lancaster, and several others in the Susquehanna Valley are getting ready to come online.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's important because getting you can't get this herd immunity, the protection until you get a large percentage of the folks vaccinated. I think you would agree with that. And the second point is it has a big impact if people aren't shopping, they're not going to restaurants, they're not going to bars and salons. I mean, the whole bit, and that's important for the economy of the state, but there's another aspect, and it's called taxes, something that, obviously we need to get in order for many programs in the state to function.
Yeah, absolutely. I think vaccines are going to play a vital role to continuing the reopening of the economy. I do think, as we discussed all throughout the pandemic, that there's a safe and responsible way to do it. That is starting with the vaccines, trying to get it to everybody who wants it. Obviously, they're focusing on those areas that are at highest risk, such as our senior citizen population or people with pre-existing health conditions. Additionally, we're also targeting teachers so kids can get back in school. We've seen the very real impact on the young folks. I'm a parent, I have 3 kids in school, and we've seen that with them and their friends in terms of the challenges of distance learning.
Right.
And getting them back in school will certainly help get folks back to work, and it will all go towards improving our lives and improving the economy. And now, in terms of money, we did get some federal funding, which we'll be working through as we head into the budget process.
Yeah, important point. I've said this all along, and probably, as I admit, I have a bias towards education, spending my whole career in the field. But I thought 2 groups of people ought to had a priority. One would be school personnel, teachers, and second, law enforcement officials because of the contact that they have. But they should have been given a priority. And now teachers are being vaccinated. And I think law enforcement officials as well.
Yeah, they'll be in the next couple weeks. I believe the task force had indicated once they got through all of 1A and the teachers, and they were using the targeted doses for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine for these populations. Because it was above and beyond what we had expected to get from the federal government once that was approved. So the first 90,000 roughly went towards the educational personnel, that's the teachers and the frontline workers in the schools. And the next group, I know that they're looking to also target the fire and EMS and all the individuals who are on the front lines and providing for our public safety.
All right, on May 18th, when folks turn out to vote, we have an interesting situation where we have 3, as I understand it, questions that the folks will get to vote on, a yes or no. And I must tell you, I read the 3, 2 of them having to do with the executive order, about using executive powers. The governor obviously used them for the pandemic, and we understand that. But there's a disagreement, in a sense, between lawmakers and the executive branch over, and I read them, and I'll tell you, I almost can't understand them.
Yeah, I think it's a classic example of government just making something much more confusing than it needs to be. I voted on the bills, Dr. Madonna, and I too questioned how they worded those questions. That's a responsibility of the Department of State, and they work with the Attorney General's office for what they term the plain English translation or the language. And I do think that the questions are particularly complex, especially the two regarding the emergency powers.
Right.
For me, I think as voters, and this is why I voted in favor of them going out to the voters, the real question is, should the executive branch work with the legislature during the emergency?
Yeah, let's run to a quick break. And then when we come back, I want you to talk about the two, at least give us an overview of them.
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll be back after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania State Education Association and Partners for Public Education, bringing the power of a great education to our schools, our students, and our communities. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Speaker of the House, Bryan Cutler, is my guest for the first two segments of the program. Well, Mr. Speaker, I must ask you, can you at least outline these two, what do I want to say, referenda, because there are more than one, questions that the folks, when they vote, are going to have to, cast a vote yes or no for?
Yeah, the real question with both of them is, what role does the legislature play anytime that an emergency declaration is made?
Right.
In the current context and the way the court interpreted it, it said that the governor can solely do all of these activities at their discretion. And obviously, we were asking to be involved all throughout this. I think that it's good as elected representatives of the people to be involved in that process, to provide that feedback. And quite frankly, I think the best example is the vaccine task force. Once we created it, once we involved the executive and legislative branches, things went much smoother. I think that the entire handling of the pandemic would also be like that. So the question is, should the legislature be involved in that process after the first 21 days? And they're both component parts of that. They broke it out because that's the way that the Constitution is structured. But I think that the questions as they drafted them are overly complex, when in reality it's very simple. Should the people have a voice? And I think they should.
Yeah, and the third question has to do with, again, a ballot question that deals with, how do I put it, equal rights,
It's an equal protections clause that would go into our Constitution. It's consistent with existing federal rights and laws. And I think probably the most important
for racial minorities, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And I think one of the most important things to remember is knowing that our primary system is a closed system, and typically only the two major parties come out. Everybody can come out and vote during the primary session on this particular set of questions. They can vote on all three of them. And it doesn't matter how you are registered or what part
Good
the
point.
affiliation you have.
Yeah, that's a great point. A lot of people think why show up because I'm not a Democrat or Republican or a third party, and therefore there's nothing to vote on. That's a great question. All right, before I let you go, what are the couple of important issues that are before the House of Representatives? I'll put it another way, the legislature, as we move forward in the next couple of weeks.
We're working on several things. We just passed a vaccine bill out of the House that would streamline the process even more down in the collar counties around Philadelphia. That was something that our southeastern colleagues, both Republicans and Democrats, were pushing, and it passed with a strong bipartisan vote. We're also working on statute of limitations reforms, which is something that two of our colleagues, Representative Gregory and Representative Rozzi, have worked on for some time. Unfortunately, the Department of State bungled the advertising requirements, and the secretary ultimately resigned over this mistake. It was really ministerial in nature, but they set justice for these victims back probably 2 to 3 years now. So we reset that constitutional process. They're required to advertise in all 67 counties, and quite frankly, the administration failed to do so. The governor was willing to work with us on an emergency amendment or some alternative ways, so we're continuing to advance that legislation in the General Assembly. And then obviously we have the budget on the horizon, and we'll be working on that with the federal monies that were recently released from Washington, trying to figure out exactly what programs they can be applied to and how they can be best utilized.
Well, look, I want to thank you for coming on, and you're always invited on the program, and I think we're particularly going to want to talk about the debate over the state budget. We'll have to see with the federal monies, it should make it a little easier to do the budget than if you didn't have the federal monies, but thanks again. All right, we're going to take up financial education. It's an important subject, and we'll get to that after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Cross-State Credit Union Association. Credit unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, go to ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Association of Pennsylvania State College and University Faculties, representing the faculty and coaches who are devoted to providing quality public higher education for Pennsylvania's college students.
Welcome back. Well, I'll tell you, there is certainly a need for more consumer financial consumer information to get along in this world, and it's gotten much more difficult because of COVID-19. Joining me to chat about that and more is Lynn Stephenson. She's the CEO of the West AIRCOMM Federal Credit Union. Welcome to the program, Lynn.
Hi, thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, look, let's start with the fact that we still have these clear indications of poor consumer financial health, and it continues to dog Americans, and something needs to change. Well, first of all, what indicators are relevant for people to know about their consumer health?
Well, as a credit union, we've always been involved with educating our members and bettering their financial lives. So we take every opportunity we can to stress that. We talk to our members about their credit scores, about their debt ratios and what they're spending in budgets. And we've also partnered with different organizations to help us do that. As a credit union and as other credit unions across the state, we've partnered with organizations to offer free credit counseling to our members, things that we pay for and our members can take advantage of. But we do it on a daily basis, and we always have.
Yeah, well, the fact of the matter is that that as you and I chat right now, that folks are stressed over it. There's no doubt that they've lost income as a result of it. We're talking about a huge percentage of Pennsylvanians, and that seems to be, top of mind for many residents of our state.
Oh, it definitely is, brought on by COVID too. At the beginning, we had people panicking, but we were here as a stable institution. We were here for them to come to get advice and to help them out with different financial things that they were dealing with. So it's just part of what we do.
Yeah. Well, the fact of the matter is that we still are seeing the impact of COVID-19. We don't have to get into the debate about whether there's a second wave, but the fact of the matter is there's still people hunkering down, still folks who aren't going out and getting involved in various aspects of the economy. And right now that's also a very serious problem that we face in the state.
Yes, it has. It's caused problems for our businesses that we help, that are members here. We do business lending, and we've seen that affect some of our members. and we've helped them get through some of these rough times. As they're not supported by the community, they're supported with things that we've done, payment deferments, just different opportunities we've given them to help them through this.
Yeah, and you got to wonder. I mean, it seems to me that the economy has to be opened in order, and I'm not suggesting one way or another whether how quickly that gets done. I'll leave that to the experts. But the fact of the matter is that until the economy gets open, we're going to continue to have this problem to a great degree. I mean, it's open, but you get my point, not fully open.
Yes, and we've seen a lot of businesses pivot in what they've been able to offer, the same way that we had to change our method of serving our members, going from having our lobbies closed and or open just by appointment and just having drive-throughs to putting new PPE in and protective things for our employees as well as our members to let them in. And we've seen our businesses react that way too.
Yeah.
We do see light at the end of the tunnel with the vaccinations now, and with the governor allowing increased occupancy for some of our businesses, our local businesses. And we've tried to support them throughout with, we were buying lunches, buying, PPE, different things to donate to our first responders in the communities we serve. And we tried to offer some support that way too. But we're seeing that they've adapted, and
right.
I think that'll be a change going forward. I think that'll always be part of what we deal with.
Sure. Well, we're going to run to a break. When we come back, I want to talk about crisis assistance and the current state of lending, and we'll do that after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine.
Welcome back. Well, I'm chatting with Lynn Stephenson. She's the CEO of the West AIRCOMM Federal Credit Union, and we're talking about a lot of things having to do with assistance to folks who, we're all going through tough times because of the pandemic. And so let me start out with, what kind of financial assistance is available?
Well, we started this back in March and April of last year when COVID first hit and during the lockdowns, and we're continuing today. We still offer payment deferments. We still have forbearance on first mortgage loans available. We also have loan specials that we run with lower interest rates, and credit unions across the state have done that. They've offered new products to help the members with any of their financial needs like that. We also belong to a member business lending QSO with credit unions across Pennsylvania and up and down the East Coast. And we've offered PPP loans to many of our members as the first round as well as the second round. So West AIRCOMM has done over $6 million in the first round, and we're over $2 million now in the second round. But we've seen that the demand for those loans decrease quite a bit since the first round.
Yeah.
But we do have those available, and we've seen people come to us because they're members here and they refer their friends, and we get new members from it. So we have stepped in to fill a gap there.
And there are other aspects of this, of the assistance. I mean, for example, donations to organizations that are literally providing food. I don't know, but driving around my community, I see more and more homeless people, more and more people holding up signs, "I'm homeless, make a contribution." But you also are this is not something that we normally would chat about, because I don't think we would think about it that much. But you're providing donations to community organizations that are supplying literally food to individuals.
Yes, we've across Pennsylvania, all the credit unions have been stepping in to do that. We've done food collections and donated that to food pantries in the area in our communities. We've also done just collected money and gave donations to different food pantries and different organizations that feed the hungry in our communities. So we have stepped in to do that. Even our employees did it without and they were dealing with these situations too during COVID, trying to take care of their own families, but they stepped up and donated food and money to help our communities.
Well, what's the current state of lending? Obviously, people have financial problems. They're going to try to borrow money. The big question is, how much they should borrow, what interest rates should they pay, how long do they have to pay the loan off, and given the financial situation and the employment situation that many people face, I mean, that's tough.
It is very tough, but we've looked at our longstanding members, and we continue to do loans even when other financial institutions tightened up their lending. We did not, and we had a pretty good year, and we're having a pretty good year now. We've continued to lend to our members, and we've seen growth in lending, especially in member business lending. And we don't just look at a credit score. We don't just look at a debt ratio, for instance, but we will look at how these people have interacted with us in the past, and how steady they've been with the credit union. And we take that into consideration also. So we've been able to continue our lending, and our delinquency has stayed very, very low. So we're obviously doing something right.
Yeah. But another important aspect of family life is being able to deal with a mortgage or to get a mortgage on a home. And what's the state in Pennsylvania of mortgage balances?
Mortgage balances now have increased tremendously. I think they've increased over $20 million. And we still have, the applications are growing daily. The market is very good, and we're here to lend to our members and get them into new houses or to refinance houses for the lower rates and better payments.
Are low interest rates a factor in the increased mortgages?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We've seen a lot of refinancing going on as well as purchases. And we encourage members to do that. We make sure that they know about it when we talk to them.
Yeah. Well, look, all of this is important, and I want to thank you for coming on the program. This is an important update, and thanks again. All right, we'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And as always, stay well.